Hello, hello, hello. It's a little dark. I apologize. I'm actually not at home. Welcome to the Dr. Tumor Talk Show. And I'm going to be talking about the mistakes that we make in terms of our weight loss when it comes to our metabolism. So, for those of you who are coming in for the first time, I'm Dr. Catherine Tumor. I'm the family medicine and community health physician and founder of Total Weight Care Institute. And um, and so it's a little distracting. Yeah, I've been trying to find a good place to do this, and it's not, and my light that I have is not really cutting it. So you'll have to forgive this little glitch, but I'm coming to you live from Washington, D.C. So what I wanted to talk about is how some of the mistakes we make, and one of the biggest ones that I see people making when trying to get healthy is particularly when trying to change their weight or lose weight in order to get healthy. Um, so what ends up happening is people drop their calories really low, and that's fine, and it works to drop weight rather quickly and rather early, but that is limited. It only lasts for a temporary amount of time, but and also what it does is that weight does come back, but it comes back in the form of fat. And that's the last thing you want when you're trying to lose weight. You're really trying to lose fat, not gain fat. And so the reason this happens is that um, our brain is designed to keep us alive. And so there's two things that trigger our brain into acting. One is thinking that we're starving, and because our brain is to keep us alive, and the other is to keep us from being eaten by a bigger animal. So that means anything that might change. So our fight or flight reaction is very strong. And so those two things, our brain is very well honed to keep us alive. So when we drop our calories really low, too low for the activity of our body, what happens is our brain says, okay, you're not eating enough. I need to slow down the use of your food. I need to make it so that when you eat something, it burns off more slowly and I can take more of it. Instead of putting it towards fuel, I'll store some of it as fat in order to hold on to it in case you need it later. And so that's what the brain does. So it does that by slowing down, and then what it does is it tries to have our rebound our appetite. It tries to grow our appetite so that we'll eat more. And when you're in a place where you have enough food, where you have access to food, um, that drive to eat, then you have access to food, so you do eat. And when you do eat, again, the brain thinks, oh, you were starving before. So what I'm going to do now is take that food that you're eating and turn it into fat just in case I need it again. So think of it like this. And I've said this before. Think of it like this. Suppose that every single day you knew that someone's going to hand you $5,000. No matter what, you were going to get $5,000. Are you more likely to spend that 5,000 or are you more likely to hoard that 5,000? Now, if someone gave you $5,000 and then said, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to give you 5,000 again, or you're not sure if you're going to have another 5,000 anytime soon, you save it. You put it aside just in case you're going to need it later. Where our body does the exact same thing with calories. When we haven't eaten enough and that starvation trigger has been activated in our brain. And so when trying to lose weight, the worst thing to do is to drop calories so much that your brain thinks you're starving and it triggers that mechanism because it counters, it actually works against you in your process. And so when because you want your food to go to fuel, not fat. And so that brings me actually to the other thing that people tend to do when they are in a health and weight loss process. And if you excuse me for 1 second, because I just realized I did not turn off my phone. And I know Murphy's Law is such that if I don't, it's going to start ringing in the middle of my presentation. So I'm going to do that now while I'm thinking about it. And so um, there we go, turned off. So the other is that when we keep thinking about calories when we talk about weight loss and health, when really it's not about calories, it's about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are what our body breaks down into glucose. That glucose then gets turned into fuel or fat. And so that's the mechanism we've got to pay attention to. When it comes to um, exercise, so we always think, okay, we need to burn off more calories, when in fact, that's not the case. When you exercise and you go to cardiovascular exercise rather than to muscle strengthening, muscle building will work on your metabolism 24 hours. Cardiovascular exercise gives you benefit for about 20 to 30 minutes after you've done it. And it really doesn't have a lot to do with weight loss. Now, cardiovascular exercise, when done correctly, can help relieve stress, and stress then helps drop weight because it does take care of cortisol. But for the most part, you want to up your metabolism, and there's really only a couple things in the body that can do that. Your brain will control it, but your muscle can enhance it. And the other is your thyroid, which we, of course, don't have any control over. It just does what it does. So, um, and so that's the other mistake I see people making is that they go straight to cardiovascular exercise, which actually doesn't do a whole lot for weight loss, but muscle strengthening does. The other is that I mistake I see are people are removing fat from their diet. Fat does not make you fat. I'm going to repeat that again. Fat does not make you fat. And when you eat fat-free foods, more than what happens is the percentage of carbohydrate in that food then goes up. And therefore, when you eat it, how that food gets turned into what's next is determined by the carbohydrates. And when there's no fat to slow it down, it's more likely will slow down the absorption. It's more likely that that carbohydrate is going to go into fat. So when you remove fat, most products that remove fat that are fat free, they add more sugar to give it more taste. Don't avoid fat foods unless you absolutely have to because of cholesterol issue, not because of any other reason. The other mistake I see people making is giving up their favorite foods. Rather than figuring out how you can eat them and enjoy them by changing the configuration of what you're eating, people just give them up. And what that does is it takes a process and makes it a chore. And anytime you take a process, you make it a chore, you make it difficult, then what happens is you're more likely to give that up. Um, the other is underestimating carbohydrate in your liquids, drinking sodas with sugar in them, drinking beer, drinking certain types of now alcohol in and of itself, certain liquors don't have an issue. It's really just the sugar and the carbs. So when you eat, you know, hop based things or sugar based things, then what that is there, that's just we call it liquid calories, but really what it is liquid carbohydrates, and your body loves it, turns it into fat. Instead, what you should be drinking is mostly water or sugar-free items. Um, the other is that issue that I see people mistakes that I see people making are not looking for an underlying cause of their weight gain. I'm going to say this now, and I say it every time, and I'm going to say it again. Weight gain and weight loss are simply side effects or symptoms of some other process going on. And that process is the main thing that we should be paying attention to. So when you're gaining weight, there's a biological, psychological, or social reason, biopsychosocial, I say this often, and it's important to look at the cause of that weight gain in order to lose it. When you know how something's made, it's easy to take it apart and unmake it. And so that's why, um, so often what happens is people drop their calories when they're eating, the amount they're eating is really not what's causing their weight gain. Many of us, like myself, who've been obese, had class 3 obesity. I'm 5 feet tall. I was well over 200 pounds. I eat more now, where I'm still 5 feet tall, obviously, but I weigh somewhere in the I fluctuates from like 113 to 117 in there. But I eat less now than I eat way more now than I did when I was 100 pounds heavier. It wasn't about food. For me, it was about stress. It was stress related weight gain. And so, and making my metabolic issues worse. And so, when we talk about metabolic, we talk about metabolism. People understand metabolism, but you understand metabolism, metabolic are the same. They're the same root words. So our metabolism affects how our body utilizes the food that we eat. Our metabolic makeup determines what happens to that food once we've eaten it. And so they're all tied together. So just to reiterate, dropping calories drops metabolism, which switches what happens with food. It gets stored as fat rather than used as fuel because the brain thinks you might be starving and tries to prevent that starvation then and then prevents it later. And so it really can affect not only just your process now, but any subsequent process, any later process. The brain remembers. And so it will not allow you to get to a point where you can do that again. The other is muscle building, ignoring muscle building and going straight for cardiovascular exercise when trying to lose weight. Cardiovascular exercise is wonderful for cardiovascular health. It's wonderful for relaxation if you can use it in that way. But it is muscle that affects your metabolism and keeps your body burning calories or using fuel all day long, 24 hours. The third was eating non-fat foods. Our body, one, needs fat to make hormones. The other is that our body needs fat in order just to function. Our brain is a lot of our brain is fat. A lot of our nerves are surrounded by fatty tissue. And so it's really, or fatty organs, not organs. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's surrounded by myelin or something that is made up of fat. So you want to make sure you eat fat. And if you remove fat from food, it's often replaced with sugar. So you don't want to avoid fat. So fat-free foods are not beneficial. Giving up favorite foods and making your process unbearable is another. The next was drinking carbs, sugar, beer, ciders, all of those things can add makes your body want to make fat out of what you're consuming. And the last was ignoring the underlying cause of why you gained weight in the first place, because that's where you have to attack in order to lose it. And I say attack just because, I don't know, we're weight loss warriors, I guess. I don't know how else to put it. Um, so I see that there's a lot of questions. There's some comments in here. I'm going to go through them, post them here. You can either post your questions here, post them in the comments after each video, or you can go to my group on Facebook, which is an open group for anyone who's not one of my private clients. That goes to my private group. But my open group is Facebook.com/groups/total weight loss. So if you go there, you can also ask me questions anytime and I'll answer them because that's where I do a lot of my teaching. So Jennifer says, howdy y'all. Hey Jennifer. Chris says, good evening. Hey, oh, you're not I'm not too far from Virginia. Stop by. Thanks, Chris. I'm actually in Virginia. I'm in Alexandria, but I'm with my mom, so I'm kind of helping my sister out with her. Um, so Andrew says, well, I never knew that. Thanks for telling me. You're welcome. Um, Jennifer also mentioned my doctor follows the eat less, move more camp. He has said several times that he can put me on a cotton candy only diet and I'd lose weight. I'm type 2 diabetic, lost weight for 6 months, then nothing. Well, it just depends on how your body, again, it depends on how that weight was lost and how much more you need to lose. Now, one of the things that happens is we have this idea in our head of how much weight we need to lose, of where we want our weight to be. Sometimes it's either one, unrealistic, two, unnecessary, or three, our body just has other ideas. It's so focused on another process that it's not even trying to, it wants to hold on to fat for whatever reason. And sometimes you just need to look for that reason as to why your body is holding on to it. And it could be because it thinks you're protecting you. Sometimes it's a maladaptive protective mechanism. And so, again, weight loss is, like I said, is only a side effect. It's only a symptom. So if that's your goal, then you need to make sure that that's actually a good goal. Um, you also said, by listening to you and others, I rebuilt my metabolism, slowly starting to lose weight again. Exactly. There you go. Um, it's not difficult if you know what to do. You just have to know what to do and how not to fight against it. Because much of what we learned, particularly in diet culture, which we've all been exposed to, much of that messaging has been false. And it really is counterproductive when trying to enter into a healthy process, particularly healthy weight loss. Nicole says, thank you for emphasizing muscle building to lose weight and increasing metabolism. You're welcome. Brenda says, wow, 113. Yep, I am. Um, people have told me that when they see me on, do they think I'm going to be, 6 feet tall? No, I'm all of five. I say I'm 5 feet, but really I'm like 4'11" and something. And yes, I am at 113, around where I was when I was in high school. And that was, and to be honest, I was not trying to lose weight. I was trying really hard to get my metabolic process under control, my diabetes. And in getting my diabetes well under control, and then my congestive heart failure well under control, for those of you who don't know, I have postpartum cardiomyopathy. So, in combination of those two things, my weight has gone down. Some of that is from the protective mechanisms of a GLP-1. GLP-1s are cardiac protective. It helps my heart. It prevents my heart from losing its function. And in the process, also controls my diabetes. And it also I lost fat, which I had too much of it, and now I have less of it. So, Laura mentions you have thyroid problems. Yes, thyroid issues. Thyroid is, for those who are listening and don't know, thyroid issues, our muscle, our brain, and our thyroid are really the only things that control our metabolism. And what thyroid hormone does is it kind of keeps our body regulated and burning food and using food appropriately in our body. When it's not functioning properly and it slows down, or it's not producing enough of that hormone, then our metabolism slows down right along with it. The problem is, often when replacing that hormone, it doesn't do the same as our natural hormone. And so our body doesn't get the memo, and it still acts like we're hypothyroid. And sometimes in those situations, you have to treat the person and not the numbers. Because if the person is still acting and they have all the symptoms of hypothyroidism, no matter what their numbers show, they're still hypothyroid. Um, Brenda says, so protein and fat helps you have satiety. Absolutely. What satiety means is it helps you feel full faster and it helps you feel full longer. So eating protein at least 100 grams a day if you can, if you have no medical contraindications for that, is really important. Eating fat is also important, preferably healthier fats. Plant-based are always the best because our body does make our hormones out of fat. Our body protects our nerves using fat. And our body actually stores some of that fat for protection so that if we are ill, if something happens, we have some cushion, for lack of a better word, and no pun intended, but we have some wiggle room when it comes to our health and stores of energy. Hello, Dr. Gilliard, saying hello. Let me see. Lord, yes, ice cream is a must for me all year round. Thus, I found ways to keep it in my diet in moderation. Yes, ice cream actually is one of the better ones. The sugar in ice cream really is the only problematic part of it. The fat in ice cream, the cream is actually quite good. Some ice creams, the creamier ones, some have egg in them, so they're high in protein. And so with ice cream, one another way of having ice cream, if you like things that are cold and you like things that are creamy, are make a protein shake out of it. Make a milkshake with protein powder. And what that does, it offsets some of the sugar that's in there. You can go with the sugar-free type. Of course, it's not as natural. Better to eat the natural one in moderation than the unnatural one in excess. But I'm making um, protein shakes out of ice cream and making milkshakes is another way of having it. How do you shift a plateau in weight loss? Well, it depends on the reason for the plateau and if it's real. Again, there are people who have an idea of where they want to be. They say they're at a plateau. Their body has other ideas. Um, so if someone has, say, a BMI of 26, is very muscular, has a BMI of 26, no matter how hard they try, they're not going to get down to a BMI of 24, 23, 22 unless they lose muscle. So what their body is plateauing is to keep them healthy. So that's partly why plateaus happen. The other is lack of calories. If your body's not getting enough calories, it's going to stop your weight loss because it does not like it. Your brain sees weight loss as starvation, no matter where you start, no matter where you end up. And so it tries to conserve that energy and the calories as much as possible. So that's another reason for plateaus. Not muscle um, you know, losing weight without muscle toning is only going to go so far. Muscle building, what muscle building does is it, one, makes you stronger, it does increase your metabolism, but it also helps you maintain your mobility when you're in your independence when you're older because you're stronger. So, yeah. So plateaus, it just really depends. Not all plateaus are created equally. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out what it is and why. Uh, Ursuline says, good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Laura says, thank you, Dr. Catherine Toomer. Oh, checker. Oh, you're saying you're tagging people. All right. Well, thank you. Yes, and that's another thing. Just share my videos. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook, and then invite your friends and family to listen and ask me questions. I will answer them. Um, so Renee, Dawn. I always call you Renee, but I always call you by your middle name. But yes, indeed. Here says, I've always felt my issue was my thyroid. When they killed it through radiation, it became next to impossible to get weight off. No matter what I did until I met you, I can never thank you enough. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's very humbling. Um, it's extremely humbling, and I appreciate you saying so. Um, Dawn says we're the same height. I'm 4'10". I got an inch on you. Don't be trying to. No, I'm kidding. No, yeah, I am. I'm short. And I like my height, so there's nothing wrong with that. Brenda says thank you for the information. Um, Brenda asks, do you ever prescribe a GLP-1 every 5 days instead of going to the next higher dose? Um, It depends. Now, if you do it using the brand, it's not going to last. You can't do it with the brand because no insurance companies is going to fill the prescription early enough for you to do that. So if you do use a GLP-1 every 5 days, it has to be in the form of a compounded medication. Now, if you have a really good and reputable and safe compound, these are some of the things you can do with compounds that you cannot do with branded medicine. You can actually nuance the dosing for the patient. You can really tailor it by either lowering the dose, adjusting the dose to mid level. I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you really know what you're doing, though, and someone who has a lot of experience with the medications. Excuse me. I just hiccuped and burped at the same time. Um, and so, unless you know what you're doing, I would just stick to the FDA approved um, dosing, and and consider lowering it if I mean going up in dose to every 7 days, if that's now the only time that that might also be beneficial is if the higher doses cause side effects that are intolerable, but the medication is giving so much benefit. You just try to figure out ways that can work best for the patient, because ultimately that's what comes first. Um, so yes, you said to stay there every 5 days to avoid side effects at the higher doses. I mean, when you give something every 5 days, it should be every 7 days. An average, it's going to come out average out to be about the same just because of the half lives. So again, like I mentioned, the only way you can start nuancing those kind of doses is if it's a compounded medication, and so it's really important then to find a really good one and one you can trust. All right. Any more questions before I go? Well, I don't see any more. Well, maybe I do. Um, oh, someone's being tagged. So, again, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, family medicine, community health physician, and founder of Total Weight Care Institute. I am here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. live. You can follow me on Facebook, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, either mine or blackdoctor.org on YouTube or on Facebook. And if you have questions, or if you have requests, you know not to sound like a DJ, but I take requests. So, and then if you'd like to have better access to me so that you can go through some of the and get more coaching, not more like this coaching education, you can join one of my Facebook groups. The most active is facebook.com/groups/total weight loss. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Good night.